Hey everyone, it's Emily. Today's video is going to be my March wrap-up video. I'm going to be sharing with you all the books that I've read this month and share my thoughts on them. And for some reason, March, I finally got out of my reading slump, which is funny because I had done a whole video complaining about being in a reading slump, and pretty much right away I was done with it. So I finished 14 books this month. I had read 12 books so far this year in 2 months, and I read more in 1 month than I did in 2 months. It's absolutely insane. So I'm going to go through them as quickly as I can / still give you as much of a review as possible. Some of them I won't have that much to say, and I will be linking, as always, my Goodreads down below so you can maybe see more, because I feel like I'm gonna get a little ditzy because there are 14 books. So let's go. The first book I finished this month was this one. This is World of Trouble by Ben H. Winters. This is the last book in the Last Policeman trilogy, and I'm really all over the place with this trilogy because basically you're following the last policeman. There's an asteroid coming on Earth in 6 months. That's the first book. And then, you know, free for all, everyone is going crazy because basically everyone's gonna die. But that main character is really focused on solving a murder in the first book, and then things just follow up. And I feel like I loved the premise, like loved it, but I feel like the story kind of got a little, like, it's very realistic, but I expected more from it, so it kind of left me a little eh. I give the third book a 3 stars, and I still think it's a good trilogy to start if you're really into that premise. At least read the first one, but the last book kind of left me a little disappointed. The second book I finished was this one. This is The Sudden Appearance of Hope by Claire North. Claire North is an author that keeps coming out with books that I'm super intrigued by the premise, but it's going to be sometimes hit and miss for me if I actually enjoyed the book. And in this one, you're following Hope, who's a character where ever since she hit 16, people started like kind of forgetting about her. So like her parents forgot her in school, and then it got worse and worse progressively. Like she can be out of the room if you don't hear her or see her for 30 seconds, you forgot about her. So that was what sold me on the book. However, it read more like a literary fiction with like stream of consciousness type of thing than sci-fi-ish that it sounded to me. So it left me, again, a little disappointed with it. And it's a type of book, I finished it and I just don't have much to say about it. It wasn't bad. The writing was fine. It just wasn't what I was expecting / just didn't give me what I wanted from it. So I believe this one I also gave 3 stars. I also read a classic. I feel like I don't read that many because I kind of got over it by reading too many before starting my channel. And this one is Animal Farm by George Orwell. I read 1984 last year and I wanted to read more from him, and this is one of the books that is raved about constantly. It's pretty short. There's like 95 pages to it, so it's very short, but I really, really liked it. If you don't know anything about it, it's basically an allegory about the Russian Revolution. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And we always hear that quote, like, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And I definitely would recommend it if you're looking to read some more classic. I gave it 4 stars, and there's 95 pages, so I can't go into it too much. But yes, it's about animals, but not really. There was a lot more to it than I expected. I also got a few books from my library. The first one was Parasite. I was looking to listen to an audiobook. Sometimes audiobooks, I just go to my library, look whatever they have, and then the first thing that catch my eyes is the one that I listened to. So I listened to Parasite, which was by Mary Grant, which she's also known as Shannon McGuire. And it was an okay kind of like zombie apocalypse type of book, kinda. The first book, basically you're following a main character who she got into an accident, and she survived basically due to the parasite that she has. Basically everyone has a parasite. It's like in the future. It just helps us with our immune system and everything. And unfortunately the twist was just so obvious from the beginning that it just left me a little eh. I didn't hate the book because I was listening to it as an audiobook, and the other book was great. But it's just a type of book, it's a trilogy, it's the first book of the trilogy, and I just don't care about continuing. So it left me, that's kind of why I was in my Friday Reads video and I was complaining that I just didn't care about any character ever. It's kind of how I felt about this book. I read Beneath the Sugar Sky by Shannon McGuire, which is the 3rd book in the We Were Children series, and although I loved the world, because you actually got to see a few different worlds, I also didn't really care about the characters, so it kind of left me a little disappointed, because obviously if you're going to be in a world where everything is made of candy, it just sounds awesome, but I just didn't really care that much about this series anymore. Like, I feel like I really liked the first book, mostly because of the murder mystery and just the, like, I was liking the idea of the worlds, but I don't know. So far I'm just all over the place with this series. I just want to like it, but I don't love it as much as everyone else. I didn't say it, but Parasite I give 3 stars. Beneath the Sugar Sky, I'll kind of give it 4 stars, I guess. And then the next audiobook that I finished, well, DNF'd at 50%, was Warcross, which was by Mary Lou. And I was so frustrated with this one. I don't DNF books that often, but this one I just couldn't deal with it. It kind of felt ridiculous. I couldn't deal with this book mostly because of the main character. She's like more bland than like plain oatmeal. She was so bland that you had to constantly be reminded of her rainbow hair, which was the only thing that was special about her. Like, she was the most boring character ever. And she's basically like a hacker, but she developed that talent basically overnight. She just unfocuses her eyes and like everything makes sense to her so easily, and it just doesn't make any sense. And like, to make her even more special, she has a record. You know, she's a bad girl, but then really when you learn, it's not really a spoiler, but like, she has it because of a good thing she did, and you're like, of course. But then what made me DNF the book was when the romance started. I was just like, F that. I just can't deal with this. Especially because I was listening to it as an audiobook, and the male character, I kind of like had in mind that he was way older than her, so it was like really cringy in my head, and it just made no sense to me. Like, she's just a bland character that's very, very bland with rainbow hair, and he's like her idol, so it makes sense that she would be into him, but there's no reason for him to be into her, like none at all. So I just couldn't deal with it, DNF'd it. I have no regret doing it. I just don't get the hype, and a lot of people were saying that it's like Ready Player One, but like the girl version type of thing, kinda heavily inspired, but maybe because it's popular right now. I can't recommend it. And Warcross I gave 2 stars, but like, I just don't really like reading a book when I'm DNFing it, but I don't care for it. So that's kind of why I started being in a reading slump at that point. I was just not feeling anything that I was reading until I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which was, my laptop closed so I don't remember the author. I got that one from my library. Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one is a historical fiction, and I went into it thinking it was a literary fiction, and I don't read them often. They're just not my jam, and I was shocked because I started reading it. I'm like, oh, it's from my library. I can have it in Express for 7 days. And I'm like, maybe it will like tempt me and I'll end up reading it. It read like a chick lit. It's kind of a chick lit with a little bit more to it than like the average one. And for the first time in what feels like months, I cared about the characters so much that I actually cried. I don't cry. Like, Emily does not cry. Sometimes I feel like I have no heart because I don't care ever about the characters. Everyone dies and I'm like, but, ooh, there's a little... But in this one, I was just crying like a baby at the end, and it just left me really, really shocked. But you're following Evelyn Hugo, who is a really well-known actress from her time, and she's for the first time telling her story to someone about basically her 7 husband, the true love of her life, or just her life story, biography. You don't know why she chose that woman to tell her story to, and you just discover her whole life, and I really, really enjoyed it. I feel like this is something that's going to become more and more popular. I feel like it's already popular, but like, everyone needs to read it pretty much. And yeah, it read like a chick lit, so super quick read, but there was a lot more substance to it than I expected. And then I read another book that has pretty much the same title. I don't know why they're so similar, but this one is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This is a debut author, and so good. In the US, it's going to be called The 7.5 Deaths. I got this one from the Book Depository, which ships internationally for free. This one is the UK version. The US version is going to have 7.5, but you're going to have to wait till like September. So I didn't want to wait, and I recommend no one waits, like, ever. This is way too good. I haven't had this much fun reading a book in so long. There's like 500 pages. This is a big book, and I read it in 3 days while being in a reading slump. It was just crazy. Absolutely loved it. It's kind of a murder mystery with a sci-fi twist to it. You follow the main character, you're really thrown into the story, so you might be a little lost whenever you're just starting it. However, basically the story is that the main character has to figure out who killed Evelyn Hardcastle. It will look like a suicide, but it's actually a murder, and he has 8 days to figure things out. However, every day he wakes up in a different body, and it's always the same day. He doesn't know who his other bodies are, and there's also other people trying to kill him and just, you know, ruin things for him. And it was really, 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 really good. I gave it like 4.5 stars, but I rounded up to 5 stars on Goodreads because I was in a reading slump and I ended up devouring this book. Loved it. And like I said in my haul video, I showed it to you. On the first page you get the little map of the little house and the who sleeps where and everything. I just really liked it. It's kind of fun game of Clue, and you're just never going to want to put this down, and I wish there were more books. Not really a continuation of this book, I would hate for that to happen, but more like other books with the same idea, same premise-ish. I would really love that, and I would read all of them. So yes, if you can read one book that I recommend, either the Evelyn Hugo one or the Evelyn Hardcastle, would recommend. So good. I would actually reread this, just to like, you know, knowing afterwards who did what would be nice. I usually mention it in the beginning, but I didn't, but let's do this anyway. I read my big book of the month. I read a few big books actually this month, but this one was the one we had chosen for this one. This is Swan Song by Robert McCammon, and this is a post-apocalyptic book. I was really in the mood. I've been in the mood for gory stuff apparently, and this actually hit the spot. I haven't been craving them anymore, probably because this is so freaking dark, like way darker than expected. For this review, I'm just gonna let you know whatever I wish I had known going into it, because it's a 900+ pages book, so there's like no way I can really describe the whole thing, but it's a post-apocalyptic book, and this one is a nuclear war between the US and Russia. This book isn't super recent, so it makes sense that that's basically what happens, although so it kind of works nowadays. This was published in 1987. You're following multiple characters from the beginning, so obviously the first few chapters will take a while until you actually understand what's going on. And some of the characters are completely crazy, so it makes the whole book a little weird. However, I wish I had known there were some fantasy elements in here, so it's not like realistic. So I feel like it kind of changes the whole book to me. However, I did still like it and I would recommend it. But yes, be aware that it's super, super dark and fantasy element, and there's not really nice characters in here. So yes, would recommend it though if you are looking to read post-apocalyptic books. This one is always recommended. Same with The Stand by Stephen King. I will probably read that one towards the end of the year whenever I feel that craving again, but for now, completely satisfied. I gave this 4 stars. Then I read it's The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn, which this one is a thriller, mystery, thriller. I'm getting kind of frustrated with the books that I'm reading. I feel like thrillers in general tend to have the same whole premise of an alcoholic woman, especially single mom, usually. In this case, you're following a main character, and she's agoraphobic? I don't know how you'd say that in English. Anyway, she doesn't leave her house, basically. And she spies on her neighbors. It was starting pretty good, actually. She was like spying on her neighbors and everything. She knows all the gossips. And she lives alone. She definitely has a drinking problem. She's technically a psycholog, but she treats people over the internet since she can't, you know, get out of her house and everything. And then there's new neighbors, and then drama. But my problem is just that it wasn't super memorable. I love the cover, which by the way, gorgeous. But in my thrillers, all I'm asking is for something fun, twist that I can't see, and just, you know, don't do something stupid. Don't have sexism or like racism or anything. And I'll be fine with it. However, I saw the both of the like twists, I guess, that were supposed to happen. I saw them coming, and since it wasn't anything that like special, it just left me a little disappointed. I gave it 3 stars just because you could really feel like you wanted to stay home while reading it. And I don't even drink, but I felt like drinking. I don't know if I mean that in a good way or in a bad way. Like, is it, oh, the book is like, they're making you feel like her so much you want to drink, or like, I could not deal with it enough that I actually wanted to drink? I don't know, I'm just saying that that's how I felt. Next audiobook I finished was Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. This is a non-fiction. They're basically a bunch of essays by her about sexism and how she's a bad feminist and everything. And just with the intro, I was completely in love with her. Unfortunately, the essays were all based on books, TV shows, movies, and a bunch of them I had never read or watched, so it was kind of hard to judge the book on that. So for about like a third to half of the book, I was really bored because I didn't know those books. Like, it's not her fault or anything, but eventually whenever she got to books and movies and everything that I knew about, I really liked her commentary on them. But yes, my favorite bits were definitely the intro and the outro. And 2 of my favorite quotes of the book, actually one of them is also one of her favorite quotes, was just, feminists are just women that don't want to be treated like shit, which that's the basic thing. And she was also explaining in the intro how she was a bad feminist because she's not perfect and everything, and I definitely could relate to that, and I do want to read more from her. So I'm not giving the book any rating because, again, it wouldn't be fair, but I did like her, and now I want to read more from her. Another book I absolutely fell in love with. I swear, I went into it not knowing much except that you were following an alien on Earth, and I fell in love with it. This is The Humans by Matt Haig. And a lot of people are talking about another book of his. Is it How to Stop Time or something? There's a movie coming out with that. I need to read it. So when I saw this book on my shelf, I'm like, why have I not read this? I need to. I had not laughed this much reading a book like ever. I brought it to work and I didn't read it on the way to work. I started reading it on the way back home, and I started giggling like a mad woman in public. Like I feel like very often people are like saying, oh, this book is so funny, and I read it and like I won't even giggle actually out loud once. I might exhale loudly by my nose or something, but like I won't actually laugh out loud. But I did with this, because you're following the alien basically sent to Earth to kill a few people that will prevent basically a mathematical equation that will bring like a lot of advancement in technology for humans, but we're like not ready for it type of thing. So he kills the person, gets in his body, and he's supposed to kill everyone that that person told. But he knows nothing about humans, so you're following his progression to learn our language and how we function and everything. And the jokes won't necessarily be for everyone, but I was giggling, I thought it was funny, and eventually it becomes less funny and it's deeper. It's more like literally fiction. Like if you're someone that you like literary fiction but you want to dip your toe into sci-fi, I would give this one a shot. And like obviously the beginning is a little less literary fiction, but towards the end there's definitely more deep meanings into the whole thing and what it is to be humans. And I really enjoyed it. I gave it like 4.5 stars, and I would definitely recommend people to get it. However, don't get this edition. I got the one with that weird thing humans have in the middle of their faces, like the alien would say. But get the one with the dog on top of it. I saw it on Book Outlet for like less than $5, and I was like, oh, why do I have this one? The other one is really gorgeous. I'll put the picture so you can see it. There's a dog in that book, and he plays like an actual role, so I would highly recommend you read this book. It was so good. So good. Next book I read was probably my most frustrating read of the month. Definitely actually my most frustrating read. I have been wanting to read more sci-fi. I've definitely been in the mood, and I've been wanting to read some like classic sci-fi, and I understand that like some classic won't be to my taste because of a lot of things have changed in society. However, to me, for a book to be considered classic, part of it has to be due to them like surviving the test of time, and they have to kind of age well. And I'm aware that there's always going to be like, this one was published in the 70s, so obviously like things were different for some reasons, and it explains sometimes some things. And I accept that. Like, I won't expect a book from the 1800s to not be a little sexist. However, this was so frustrating. I read The Forever War by Joe Alderman, and this is on so many lists of like best sci-fi of all time, or like, you know, favorite sci-fi of all time for everyone, and that cover is gorgeous. And I've been really wanting to read it, and I was aware that it was going to be obviously military because there's the Forever War on it. And I'm not huge on military fiction ever. I went into it being aware of that, so I didn't expect to enjoy the battles bits, which I did not. I definitely was bored there. But my issue, as you can see, were all the sexist or discrimination against like LGBTQ plus people. But clearly, you can see if you post it here, I didn't do it for the beginning and then I stopped eventually because I got tired of it. But those are all instances of like sexism or discrimination against gay or lesbians. So, oh, was that a frustrating read. So I'm going to be reading you my two favorite ones because I want you to be as frustrated as I am. Actually, let me start with a positive with this book. So basically the premise slash the one positive thing for me was the fact that you're following someone that is obviously sent to war, and since it's in space and with time relativity, the first 2 years he's in the army, he comes back on Earth and it's been 26 years. So you can see the differences in society and everything, how things evolved and how he struggles to keep up and everything. And this explained a few of my issues that will be coming up in a second. Obviously he's a little bit more old school, and as time progresses for him, I think towards the end it's like 5 years for him, but it's been like thousands of years on space, on Earth. So it explained a few bits. So now let's go back to my frustrating bits. I'll explain the context in a bit because it's definitely not because it's out of context, but. Then unleashed Stargate's 18 sex-starved men on our women, compliant and promiscuous by military custom and law, but desiring nothing so much as sleep on solid ground. That sounds very consensual. Very. Like, they have no choice by law. And in this one, they were just like going to a different station and there wasn't enough women to sleep with all the men that were there. Very, very equal, and yep. The next quote is also something I added on Goodreads, the two of them, and it's funny how a lot of people comment on those and like tell me I'm wrong and everything, and I'm like, if you don't understand what's wrong with those quotes, it's on you. Like, it's not my job to educate you, and I got a little frustrated with the responses. However, let me read a second one. I'd gotten used to open female homosex in the months since we left Earth. Even stopped resenting the loss of potential partners. The men together still gave me a chill though. And like, I understand people are gonna be like, oh, you know, it's just about the character. It's not like the author saying this. But like, dude, there's still all of these things saying shit like this. So I'm gonna stop there. Frustrating read for me. I would never be able to recommend it like a lot of people do. I just can't see myself recommending it. Like, even if I liked the idea, didn't enjoy the book, I didn't care about the characters, like, that's my issue very often with military books. I'll like read about people dying left and right and I don't give a shit. And shouldn't be like that. And I also want to mention that I understand that for the author it was about, I believe, the Vietnam War and the pointlessness of the whole thing, which again, completely understand, and like that's becoming a little bit more in the spoiler of the book, so I didn't want to discuss this too much in my review, but I understand. And maybe it's because like from now at this point we kind of see this more than maybe when it happened. However, for me it just doesn't make the book better. My experience was not great. I gave it 2 stars because there was potential. There were bits that I was interested in, but they were just yeah. And then last but not least, I listened to one more audiobook. This was Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris, which was a thriller. Another thriller I struggle with. I just didn't really care for the character. The audiobook was great, by the way. The narrator did a great job. You're following a woman who is in an abusive relationship. Basically, there's like a bait and switch. As soon as she marries the guy, he becomes a monster. And although I wanted to feel for her, I kind of had issues with it because it felt like she had a few opportunities to get out of here. I don't want to be a biatch saying it, but it just didn't really feel like... I can't say too much again because thrillers, anything pretty much is a spoiler, but yeah, I just really didn't care that much for her, and I probably ended up giving it like a 2.5 stars by being generous because it was very forgettable. Like, the book was like 350 pages, but it read like it was like a 150 pages book because nothing really happens. There's just not much to say about it. It just wasn't memorable. It's not something I would be able to recommend. It just didn't have enough substance for me. So those are all the books that I finished this month. 14 books. It's absolutely insane. Things were all over the place. A few I just didn't care for, some I actually hated, and then quite a few that I really liked. Like, actually 3 books that I can see myself putting in my best at the end of the year, which I hadn't read one book. Well, technically one, but technically was a reread. So like 3 books in 1 month that I would put in my best of the year. So that's pretty insane. I'm really happy with my reading, and I will be actually going and filming right away my TBR for April because I'm in the mood to read more books. So that's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to let me know in the comment section if you have read any of the books that I mentioned, what you thought about them, or just let me know what was your best book read of the month, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.